you came from a job as a hairdresser.
That's right.
Right into the Air Force.
That's right.
From my point of view, I think of it as being a regimented and very disciplined
very much
routine.
So.
Is that correct?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, we used to parade at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was still dark, and the Sergeant Major used to come with a torch and put it round our faces to make sure that we shaved, and also that your trousers had to be really, and your shirt and everything else spick and span and well pressed, and your shoes, or rather boots, nice and shiny. And he used to put the torch on your boots to make sure that you have cleaned them before you came on parade. And of course the trouble was that when you go for your lunch or breakfast, you had very, very little to eat, because the shortages were already were about to start.
Did you really know what was involved in regards to the way of life in the Air Force?
No, I don't think anybody knows until they join, and especially that I was model coddled with my family. I was spoiled, if you like to call it. I was not the tough type of a person. So of course when you're like that and you get into an Air Force or whatever, and then you have the sergeant calling you, "You stupid bastard, why didn't you done this or that or the other?" All you can do is you go into the toilet later on in the evening and cry, because you feel so sad and depressed. And why did he call me a bastard? I've got a father, I used to say to myself. And remember that I was a ladies' hairdresser, and then suddenly you see this rough bastard is calling you a bastard and all this. You know, what can you do except go in the bloody toilet and cry your eyes out? And on top of that you had air raids, you see, and the bride boys of the Royal Air Force, I'm talking the bride boys, the regular ones who've been in the Air Force perhaps 5-10 years before the war, and you see an aircraft coming, you know, high up, and I used to say, "There's an aircraft there." They say, "Oh, that's one of our own." Of course, 2 minutes after they are throwing bombs on us, you see. But these blokes that they were regulars in the Royal Air Force, they didn't know much about the Air Force. They'd never been in a plane.
What was your job in the Air Force?
Aircraft had general duties. That says it all, general duties.
That's in Malta?
Yes,
right.
And I volunteered. I used to volunteer. They used to come and ask for, say, 6 volunteers to fill the Sunderland. And you know how we filled it? By hand, pumping by hand.
With petrol?
Petrol, yeah. Aviation fuel. And we were the petrol bowser floating in the sea, right? Because the Sunderland used to come by the sea. And on one side there was the fort that the Italians were after, and on the other side there was the slipway, the Kalafrana base, seaplane base, and we were between the two. So you can imagine, and when there is an air raid, you couldn't go anywhere because you're on a floating bowser. And it was very risky. But I survived.
What about the general duties? What did that mean?
Oh, general duties was anything from digging and filling sandbags to protect the aerodrome, you know, or rather not aerodrome, the seaplane area. And we used to dig trenches and put the sandbags full of earth, and we used to stack them up on so that we shelter underneath them. And also kitchen duties, anything that they wanted to do, from cleaning toilets to sweeping the yards and whatever.
So I want to ask about the actual air raids in Malta. You mentioned that the base at Kalafrana was bombed.
Oh, yes.
What was the first raid you experienced?
Well, the first raid I experienced, it was when the warrant officer Saxton, he had his merit quarters there, and nobody liked him. He used to give us instruction while he is sheltering in the air raid shelter. But anyway, so his house was bombed. That's the first. They had a direct hit.
on his house at
on
the
his
base.
house, but the family were out and he was out, so it's only the house that got bombed. Nobody was injured. But anyway, the thing is this, that we had as I told you, a big air raid when I visited my sister in Sliema, and I was really frightened. But what did happen, that when the French surrendered, the Italians used the French planes, and they flew over to us, and we were on the slipway on parade, and we looked up, and I said, "Oh, it's." They were flying low from the sea, and naturally we thought there were French aircraft escaping to come and land in Malta, but instead the Italian used them, and of course as soon as we looked up, they start firing a bloody machine gun on us. We had about 17 killed and several wounded, but luckily I was all right again, and they really gave us a shock and a surprise, because they had the Free French emblem on the fuselage.
Were any of the Maltese killed?
Yes, there were about 3, I think, of them killed.
Did you know them?
Yes, one was Vassallo, Farrugia and Camilleri. 3 good blokes they were too.
Were air raids a frequent occurrence while you were at Kalafrana?
Oh yes. And also one time, I don't know why, what did we go there for, but we were sent up to Lucca airport or airdrome, and we had a big air raid then. And all I remember, I was laying on the floor with the others, and our pockets and our hat was full of glass from the windows and the barracks nearby. The strange things about the Italians, we used to call them cowards and all that, they used to stay up high like a little speck in the sky, but by golly they used to hit the targets. Bloody hell.
You said that the air raids were frequent, but what does that actually mean? Once a day? Or?
Oh no, more than that. Oh yes, it happens every 20 minutes, half an hour there was an air raid, night and day. And night time, of course, you see the flares coming up first, and then the bombing follows. And we had so many of them that at first you may not sleep with fear, but later on, after a few days, you just go to sleep and you don't care a damn about the air raids. Even if somebody wake you, they say, "Hey Larry, there's a," or as they call me then, Loreto, there is an air raid. I say, "Oh, don't worry about it," and I just go back to sleep.
The main target would have been the Grand Harbour, is that right, with the Royal Navy ships?
Yes, but also the airport, like Kalafrana. They knew the seaplane base there were going out. You see, the Sunderlands used to go out and throw depth charges and whatever to kill the submarines. And the Sunderland, I must say, they done a very, very good job searching for the submarines. Wonderful job. And the Italian knew it. So, of course, they used to come and bomb our base right, left and centre. And remember, nearby there was that fort, I can't remember the name of it, and they were after that and the seaplane base. And, of course, the Grand Harbour and wherever they thought of ships and aircraft, they came and bombed. And they did hit. And, of course, I remember also, by the way, a very interesting thing. We opened the cases of the 3 Gladiators, because they were still in packing cases. Yeah. Faith, hope and charity.
Right, the aircraft.
Yeah, and I feel very proud when I think of that I did touch and opened the cases that some of their parts were in.
So they weren't complete aircraft?
No, they assembled them later. Yes.
Tell me briefly the story about faith, hope and charity, those 3.
Hope, faith and charity were the only 3 gladiators that they could do damage to the enemy regarding safeguarding the island, you say. And they were wonderful. wonderful, not only the aircraft, but the pilots who flew them.
Because it was greatly uneven
They
battle,
were
wasn't it, with those
outnumbered.
three craft. And
They were outnumbered.
that's why they're so important. They're almost legendary now.
That's right. And not only outnumbered, but the Italians had better quality aircraft.
Where were the parts unloaded then, or unpacked?
Unpacked, they came in Kalafrana, and then of course they dispersed them up to Lucca, I suppose. But as I said, I wasn't there long enough to see much because I was posted away to the Middle East. Also, we had the RMA guarding the Kalafrana base, and many of them, one night, they got hit badly. And they were really crying, the groans and all that. And that stayed with me till this day, because I was very sad about it.